Welcome to There's a Musical for That.
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 And if you like cellar dwellers
And trapdoor lovers,
there's a musical for that.
And if you like mermaids, crabs, and guppies, why? There's a musical for that.
If you like fan of the opera fan fiction, there's a musical for that.
If you like falling in love and broken hearts, and establishing your dreams and then having them dashed, and duels, there's a musical for that.
and it's called Wicked.
And it's called Little Mermaid Live.
It's called Hamilton.
And it's called Dogfight.
And it's called Phantom of the Opera 2, Love Never Died.
Welcome to There's a Musical for That.
I love the part in fairy tales that's very near the end, when all the kingdom cheers for their new queen. And all is well, and all is good, and everyone belongs, and happily they're ever after.
Hello, welcome to There's a Musical for That, the podcast where we prove there's a musical for every situation. I'm Tiffany,
And I'm Kayla.
and if you like seeing the best in people, there's a quasi-musical for that called Rigoletto. It's about as much of a musical as I would say Beaches is. So not super musical-y, but it has some songs in there, and it's
about
centered around
singers,
music. Yeah.
similar to Beaches.
Yes. Came out in 1993. It is a family-friendly children's movie. I watched it at my grandmother's house. Every time we went to visit my grandmother, I watched this movie. It was a childhood favorite of mine, so I was feeling nostalgic, bought it off Amazon Prime, and actually liked it just as much as I did when I was little, so it was a fun time for me. And then this was the first time Kayla's ever seen it.
It was good. I liked it.
I actually, not the second time that we watched it together because I was distracted, but the first time I watched it after many years as an adult, I actually did cry at the end.
I'm
So
surprised you told the people that.
It was very moving for me. It was brought up memories, and it
Yeah,
was just a touching
vulnerability.
movie. Yeah, very sweet. So this is loosely based off of the Beauty and the Beast concept, only not romantic at all. But the Beast is a guy named Rivaldi. In the movie, he has some sort of disfigurement, so he's, I don't know, they put some stuff on his face.
I thought, was he really Rigoletto?
He is.
He's a
but
fairy king, right?
Yes, but in the movie, like, his character itself is,
When he's in the human world?
yes, it's Rivaldi. And then Beauty is this little girl named Bonnie who goes to work for him because he bought their house and he's teaching her to sing. And he's placed under a curse, and he has to get someone basically to love him to break the curse so that he can go back to his home and be with,
The fairy princess or whatever, his girlfriend.
yeah.
Were they fairies? Did they say that, or am I making that up?
I don't think they said they were fairies.
Because
No.
I was like, these are some human-looking fairies.
Yeah, they're not fairies.
They look like regular people. Okay.
Yeah,
they were in
just
some
from
mythical
a fairy
land.
tale land. Yes.
Okay, they were from a mythical place.
Yes.
Got it.
So it starts off with Bonnie singing in a competition. She's competing against a really mean girl. She's very snotty. I don't like her at all.
Pardon. Didn't it start with her reading the book?
Oh, you're right. It did. It started with her singing Rigoletto. Thank you. And then at the end of it, and Rigoletto is the fairy tale where you read about the prince who was cursed. And then,
Okay, so she's essentially reading about this guy.
yeah.
She doesn't know that she's reading about.
Yes.
This is overtly complicated. She's reading a fairy tale story about a prince who gets cursed and has to go away from home, right?
Yes.
That's in general what the story is, at the part that
Yes.
she's reading it.
Yes.
And then it fades to On Wikipedia, it said it time warps to the 1930s. I did not know there was a time warp.
There wasn't a time warp.
Okay. The person on Wikipedia seems like they were putting their own conjecture into what they think happened.
I guess it was time warped in the sense that we are not in the 1930s.
They seem to think on Wikipedia that Bonnie was reading this story, and I guess her reading it, it takes you inside of the story, and the story was happening in the 1930s in the Great Depression, because they said the next scene shows a time warp to the 1930s during the Great Depression.
But Bonnie is the one reading it, and she is in the 1930s, so there's no time warp.
Yeah.
That's incorrect. Wikipedia.
Not that I saw. I didn't notice that there was a
free.
time warp. That's
I do
true.
like Wikipedia. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that with a tone.
I've donated to Wikipedia before, so I can say whatever I want.
That's good. Not.
That's fair. That's fine.
I may have tried to contribute to an article, but I don't think I could figure it out. Anyway, so she finishes reading the story, and her brother and mother are there, and then they're all going to bed, and she walks over to the little mirror in the corner and starts singing the fairy tale song.
Mm-hmm.
Like, her favorite part of fairy tales is when everybody meets the queen or whatever, and they're applauding her. Those aren't the right words, but it's a really good song.
Yeah, it was cute.
Fast forward, that's actually my favorite song.
I was
in
gonna
the whole
say
movie.
that too.
Okay.
So that's settled.
Yep. And then that, I guess there's the time warp from the night to the next day in the music competition while she's still singing the
fairy tale.
The screen just kind of changes and she's on stage in her part of the competition going against the little snotty girl who ends up winning by 1 vote or whatever. It's like a 2-1. There's only 3 judges, so it's 2-1.
Yeah.
She wins, and Bonnie was sitting next to her friends Georgie and Porter after she sang, and the stupid snotty girl was walking by, and she was like, "Oh, nice shoes, Georgie. They go really well with your dress." And Georgie is very, very poor, so they were very old shoes, which actually they were kind of nice-looking shoes. People would actually probably wear them today. But they were supposed to be really old, raggedy shoes, and her dress was very plain.
She's wearing some sort of sack.
Yes.
It looked like. I thought the shoes were like her dad's old shoes or something. They looked too big.
Oh, did they?
That's what I thought, because I was like, So I assumed they were her dad's old shoes.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was more looking to see if like her toes were poking out, and they weren't like fine looking shoes.
They look like they had paint on them or something.
Yeah.
And Georgie and Porter are brother and sister.
Yes. And Georgie started to silently cry because it made her feel bad, which is what it wasn't a nice thing to say to begin with, but actually seeing that what she said made someone cry was where it's like, oh, you're truly a terrible person because you hurt someone. I didn't like it. And she wasn't as great of a singer, actually.
She wasn't that good.
Mm-mm.
She was okay.
Then later that night, Bonnie's mom found out that their house was bought. Mm-hmm. Turns out to be bought by Rivaldi, the guy who's in the giant mansion. I forget what they called it.
I don't remember.
Oh.
It was some old giant house that had been empty.
Yeah, but he's supposed to be new in town, and he bought their house, and she went to him. She's like, "Why?" And I paid so-and-so $10 a month, and I'm prepared to pay you $12. And he laughed at her, basically. And she was like, "Well, I don't have anything else. This is just a house to you, but this is my home." And this is where it got
awkward.
Yes, it was weird. He was like, "Well, you have a daughter, don't you?"
Yeah.
"I want her to come work for me every day after school.
And you can keep your house." And the mom was like, "No."
Yeah.
I'm not selling my child to you.
Which was the right thing to say.
Yes.
I don't know that I would ever... That would happen in any movies anymore. That was just an awkward request for a grown man to make.
Yes, especially I think the production company that made this movie was called like Family Friendly Entertainment. Mm-hmm. It seemed a little odd for them to include that. They could have done something else.
Yeah, there's got to be another way that they could have made that work. But so the mom goes home that night and she's tearing up bread and putting it in a glass. I assumed to put buttermilk in it, which is a thing that I've seen other people do.
You've
Which
seen
I actually
that in real life?
I am fairly certain that I saw that happen at my grandmother's house, actually. So it brought back a memory that I had suppressed because it was a very awkward thing that was happening.
Could you explain to me? I think you said this before, and I asked you, what do you eat the bread, the soggy bread? Do you drink it like a smoothie? Do you know what happens with it?
I think you drink the milk. I don't think you eat the bread afterwards.
So what is?
But I never actually I never stuck around to find out because buttermilk to me is very gross.
I just think you cook with it. You make a buttermilk biscuit with it. You don't drink it.
I need to look this up later. Listeners, somebody look up putting bread and buttermilk together and see what you do with it.
Listeners, do you drink bread and buttermilk?
Has anyone heard of this before?
Do you do this?
Or did I make this up because I saw this as a child and then I dreamed a whole story about it in my life?
Maybe. I mean, if this was really the Great Depression, as Wikipedia wants us to believe it is, I could see them doing odd things like that.
But I didn't grow up in the Great Depression era.
Well, your grandma did. Did she not?
That's true. Yeah, she did.
So, I mean, I know people, have done strange things. It just didn't seem like that would stretch either the bread or the buttermilk. So it's like, why would they go together? I know about putting like rice in a dish to stretch it out. Mm-hmm. Bread's not going to stretch buttermilk, and buttermilk's not going to stretch bread. So it's just like,
I don't know.
Regardless.
So anyway, that's going on at the dinner table, and the mom is telling Bonnie this deal that the guy made, and Bonnie's like, so either we're homeless or I go to work for him. And she was like, you're not going to work for that man. And she was like, well, let me just try it out and see. So she does. She goes to try it out to work for Rivaldi, and he's mean and yelling all the time and has a temper, which is actually not that bad. So,
I mean, it was very verbally abusive. But back to the mom telling Bonnie the issue. I don't think the mom should have told her child.
Oh, probably not.
The issue with them going to lose their house. The writers could have just
yes,
added some extra touches here or there. Because in the grand scheme, it's like, fine, whatever. I'll suspend my disbelief.
Right. They had to get her in there to keep the story going, but they could have gotten her in there in some other manner.
Yes. And when I was watching it, I mean, I was kind of like, but in having to retell this for others and to critically think about it, I'm like, you could have come up with something else.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the best they had. Whatever. Anywho. But yeah, he's a yeller, Mr. Rivaldi. Mm-hmm. He screams at people.
And his lady friend, lover lady who doesn't live with him because he's cursed, does come and visit, and he's yelling, and she doesn't. I did appreciate that she didn't stand for it. She was like, stop it. Like, she was basically yelling back, like, stop yelling. You're scaring her, and I don't want to put up with it. And he was like, you shouldn't put up with it, basically. He's like, you should just leave me here. And she didn't want to do that. So yeah, she's still been visiting after however many years he's been cursed. Bonnie heard her singing and said, oh, it's beautiful. And Rivaldi took complete credit for it. He's like, I taught her to do that. She may have had the raw talent, but he took complete credit for her ability to sing, which is funny. And then she wanted to learn to sing like that. I feel like I'm missing some pieces, but basically, eventually she asked him to teach her to sing, and he eventually says yes.
Well, I will fill in a couple of the pieces.
Okay, thank you.
She was told never to go into that one room, which was his room. That was the room that the lady was singing in. So she, of course, does snoop. I think it's like her first day. She does snoop. Rivaldi grabs her when she opens the door and screams at her. Mm-hmm.
Which, to be fair, I just want to say she opened the door. She had not yet entered the room. Just for a technicality in the movie.
Wow.
Okay, carry on.
Cool. I didn't think about that. I was just like, why would you snoop in someone's house? It's so rude. But he should not have grabbed her like that. It was very scary to me. I don't appreciate that.
Then he pulled her into the room.
That's very true. So, and also when Bonnie says, I want to sing like that, and he says, sing for me, and she does, and he laughs at her.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, what? That's not nice. And he says something to the effect of, I can teach you to be great. You're okay, but I can make you better. So I just wanted to fill in those little pieces.
Oh, yeah. And then she's like, you are ugly. And she's like,
after he laughed at her?
Yeah. And she's like, you have an ugly heart, which is worse than an ugly face. You can't help how you look, but you can help how you treat people. So I like that they called out everything. Like, yes, he was yelling, but every time he was yelling, somebody called him out. And it was like, that's not okay. So I appreciated that. And then he sang for her, and she was like, oh, you are beautiful. Anybody who can sing like that can't be ugly or whatever. Which, okay,
That sounds dangerous to me.
Talent doesn't overcome treating people
Yeah,
poorly.
beautiful sounds, beautiful looks, beautiful gifts do not. If somebody's doing something horrible for you, and then it's kind of like the Disney principle of like the ugly person is the bad person and the beautiful person is the good person. Listen, don't be fooled.
And so the side plot of this is someone in town, or someone is buying up all the property in town. And all the townspeople think that it's Rivaldi, and they're blaming him of like, oh, who's taking away all of our property? Where
kicking us out.
Yes, they're kicking them out. So he had bought Bonnie's home, but didn't kick them out. But someone is buying all the other property and kicking everybody out. So everybody thinks it's him. At the same time, a bunch of miracles are happening. So people who had, like, mostly kids who were maybe
ill or something.
Yes, couldn't see, stuff like that, were getting better throughout the whole thing too, which nobody really questions that.
No, I mean, and people are getting surprise money in the mail too. So I just hope that maybe that money was enough for them to go to a doctor and get their liver fixed or whatever. Because it's a little weird that he has magical healing powers.
No, because at the end, we'll get there. But he was, yes, I think that's what was happening.
Yes. He sent some people some money for operation. Other people, he was like, I guess I'll just heal you.
I don't know how. Porter, Bonnie's friend, the little boy, had a stutter, and he just had a conversation with him and gave him basically, I guess, confidence, and his stutter went away. So that was fun.
Well, I think it might have been the magic mirror. Because at one point later, he was stuttering again, and then they gave him the mirror again. Or the mirror could have just reminded him of his own confidence. Because it was like the mirror will show you what you learned. I think that's what he said. The mirror will show you what you've learned and how you become a better person or something like that. And I don't know if it's him looking in the mirror, seeing that he no longer, I don't know. I don't know if it was the mirror or if he just was like, you don't have to stutter. It's a very Christian Scientist way of doing things, I guess. Like, don't be sick. Stop it.
And throughout the movie, all the kids start to really like Rivaldi, and they play with him, and they go to his house, which is really weird that the kids like him so much and the adults still.
It was very Michael Jackson-esque. It reminded me of Michael Jackson and Neverland.
Oh.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Vaguely.
He created a theme park at his home. And children would come have sleepovers at his home. And this caused a lot of adults to be concerned and alarmed. And some people believe it was all innocent fineness.
I have to believe that the parents who sent their children believed it was innocent, which...
Some people were after the first lawsuit, some people were sending their kids just so they could also get a lawsuit. They would send their kid and then be like, no, I'm going to sue you.
Disturbing, and I feel bad for those children for having such parents. But in this instance, I'm like, I guess back in those days, maybe parents just didn't know where their kids were going.
No, I think their kids were just outside and they're like, whatever.
Their kids should have said how nice Rivaldi was so that the townspeople...
They might have. Well, maybe
I don't think they were.
I think they just didn't say anything because they felt like their parent would be mad and say, don't go back.
Could be.
Because it's like, ask for forgiveness instead of permission or something, which I'm not a huge fan of that. But maybe that's what the kids are doing. Like, if they find out, they find out. I'm not going to tell you. So you can tell me no, and then I have to disobey you. If you never told me anything, I don't have to disobey you. But yes, the children like him. He's playing with them.
Yep. Eventually, Bonnie goes to the singing competition. Her friend Georgie is with Rivaldi, and she asks him to teach her to sing. He's like, maybe, but not today, and he gives her a doll.
Well, the townspeople... Rivaldi got Bonnie a invite to the state competition she originally didn't have.
Oh yeah, this
He
is an
got her an
important plot point.
invite to the competition, and he wrote a new song for her or something. He gave her his personal song, and then the townspeople found out and said that if she went to the competition, if she went to the competition with Rivaldi, something bad was going to happen. Because it was fine that she went without him. It was like, if you go with him to this competition, they were going to do something.
Was it they were going to take away her mom's job or something? What were they going to do?
I don't remember. I thought it was if you keep working with him, you cannot go to the competition.
That's what it was. Yes. And
so she told him that, and he was like, I understand, just go to the competition, never come back here. And she's like, I'm not going to do that.
Yep.
I won't leave you. And he does like one of those Lassie Free Willy type things where he's like, get on out of here. Get, girl, get.
And she runs.
Yeah, she
away.
runs crying away. And then the manservant was like, did she choose to leave? And Rivaldi goes, no, she chose to stay. And I guess that was the great.
Yes.
But you told her to go. There's dogs here. So if you hear dogs, listen, that's what they do, okay?
Dogs bark, that's right.
They're trying to tell you about the show, the movie.
I know they want attention. I just saw them right before we started. They'll be fine for the duration of this podcast.
They're temporary dogs.
They're not temporary as in like they're not my dogs. But they'll be fine. Either way, even if they were my dogs can bark. They'll be just fine. They're not locked up. They have a safe
oh my gosh.
Toys. They're fine. They have water.
So like you were saying, she goes to the competition.
Yes. And her friend Georgie went to ask to be taught to sing, and he's like, not right now, and gives her a doll. And then he's taking her home back to the village, and she's like, oh, let's go to the shortcut way. And
he has an issue with his leg.
Yes, which is very rude of her.
Yeah, because she was like, come on, hurry up. And he's like...
He's hobbling along because he just can't go that fast.
What do you mean?
And he was like, wait, this doesn't look safe.
Number one, it's hard for me to climb these rickety stairs. Number two, this is not safe. And Bonnie's mom told them earlier not to play around that freaking quarry. Mm-hmm. And she falls in. That's what she gets.
She falls in, and Rivaldi...
I guess jumps in to save her. We don't see that part. We just know that she tumbled into
Because later that night, they're like, oh, where's Georgie? And all the townsmen are like, oh, we gotta go help find her because it's getting late and she hasn't come in yet. And Rivaldi comes limping in.
Dragging her well, he's holding it, but he's dragging that leg.
Yes.
He's like, something happened, Georgie.
She fell in or something. And then everybody's like, this was your fault. You are a monster. And then they beat him
to death.
A bunch of grown men
beat him literally to death.
Mob beat him.
They lynched him. It was a lynch mob, and he was killed.
And then they go ransack his home looking for evidence that he is the one who has been buying their property.
I think the one guy was looking for that. The other people were just destroying everything.
And then they go back to the little shop where he is still laying on the table.
Dead. Because you murdered him.
He wasn't dead yet. They picked him up, brought him inside, laid him on a table, and were just sitting
Georgie's
around.
Mom, Bonnie's mom was like, we have to help him, pick him up.
Yes. And the owner of the shop and a couple other people helped pick him up, carried him inside the shop. And it was like their general store or whatever.
Yeah, whatever you call those things.
Like a drugstore of the 1930s, whatever. Mm. And then the townspeople came back and like, we have the book. And they open it up and start reading it, thinking that they're going to have the list.
They're reading it very self-righteously. Like, Mark A. Smith was given $200. And they're like, oh, was given $200.
And like, leg healed or whatever. And like, they could see. So he's listing the amount of money that he gave these people and what they like how they were healed afterwards. Like they sought treatment and now someone could see.
He gave it anonymously, so nobody knew why they were getting these checks or whatever they were getting. Yes. They didn't know why.
And one by one, like the people start disappearing, and the guy who was reading it just stopped reading it. So Bonnie's mom goes and picks it up and just keeps reading it, so they could all these grown men could hear how their wives and their children were healed. Yes. And then the Rivaldi is still just laying on the table. So finally, the owner of the one guy is like, well, I don't get it. Who's been buying our homes? And the owner of the store
sounded just like him.
Oh, thank you.
You did. Wow.
The owner of the store. I was like, me, I've been buying them. He's like, so leave this man alone. And then he looks. He's like, let's get this man to the hospital. And
Too
I'm
little,
just
too
like,
late.
he's been there for well over an hour at this point.
The military should have bombed that town. I want them to all die.
Most of the kids were all right.
I don't care.
So then, yes, they finally take him to the hospital, but he does end up dying. And Baldy comes home. She's like,
Bonnie.
Bonnie.
Called her Baldy. Baldy. Yeah, Baldy come home. It's like Lassie come home, Baldy come home.
It's Bonnie for Baldy. It's a very confusing
That's
time.
their celebrity couple name. Baldy. Yeah, she comes home after winning the competition and they're like, well, he's dead.
Yep.
She's like, no.
Yep.
Baldy. Sorry. Please continue.
So then all the townspeople go to the funeral.
I'm sorry.
This is around the time where I cried in the movie.
I'm crying now. You didn't cry when they were wailing on him?
I think that's what started it. And then I just had slow tears all the way up
That
until
is
the
so
funeral
sad.
time. Yes. And all the townspeople were there, and they all seemed to be getting along, and nobody is going to jail for having killed this man.
The FBI needs to be called on these people. I hate them.
And then at some point, they're walking past the house, the mansion where Rivaldi lived, and they're like, "Oh, nobody was
fixed
there."
Up.
It's been fixed up, and they ran into it. Like somebody else, I guess, was moving in.
They heard the piano music.
Yes, they go in there, and they're like, "Oh, that's Rivaldi's song. He gave it to me, or that's my song, the song that Rivaldi gave to Bonnie." And then
Sorry.
they go in. I think they find the mirror too, or do they find the mirror after?
He gives them the mirror.
Okay. They go in there and they see basically
A clean-faced
non-deformed guy, and
He's been reborn.
He is Rigoletto.
He had to die to
Yes.
become beautiful. Yes.
So he's healed now,
and he's like, "Oh no, I used to live in this home." I don't think he had an accent, but he said he used to live in the home, and he's smiling and he's cheery, and he's like, "Oh, this is just an old song, blah de blah blah." And also, I found this mirror, and gives it to the stutter boy.
Yep, because his stutter came back.
Porky?
Porter.
Well, their names together sound like Georgie Porgy, so it keeps messing me up. Why would you name your kids Georgie and Porter? Georgie Porgy is right there. Georgie Porgy pudding pie?
I had not thought about that.
That's all I can think about, because the girls have made him cry. Their dad was abusive also, by the way, and then he got a job and he turned nice.
Yes.
FYI.
Yep.
The end.
And the manservant, during the funeral, Bonnie's mom was like, "Oh, what are you going to do now?" And he's like, "Oh, I have a job offer from back home, someone he used to know," and it turned out to be Rigoletto. So he's basically still working for the same guy. Yeah. Rigoletto gets into the car with his lady friend, fiance.
And Bonnie recognized her and was like, "Oh."
Yes. And then it ends with her reading the story of Rigoletto again by the fireplace, and
her brother says, like, "Do you really believe that?"
She's like, "I do."
Yeah, I do too. Mm-hmm. That town, I am really upset by that.
And then the credits roll, and then they play my favorite song again.
Something like this kind of sounds like that,
Mm-hmm. It does. It's about what it sounds like.
What do you want to read this out of? Or what was your favorite song? Or do you have anything else to say?
Song. I don't have anything else.
That was my favorite song too.
Yep.
I hate the people.
Yeah, the people aren't great. What are we gonna read this out of?
Rigs in your Leto.
That's not a real thing.
How many rigs do you have in your Leto? Number of townspeople that should be murdered for their crimes.
No.
Singing competitions, musical notes, manservants, miracles.
She's so the manservant, when he was telling her the rules and said don't go into this room, at first she was like, why? And then she was going to go into it. So instead he decided to just bribe her of like, tell you what, every day that you don't go into that room, I'll give you, was it an ice cream sundae?
I don't remember that at all.
I think it was an ice cream sundae. And she was like, deal.
Can't even keep a deal.
She didn't go into the room. She was pulled into the room. So I say we rate it out of ice cream sundaes.
That's fine. I don't remember that, but that's fine with me.
Oh. Do you want to keep brainstorming?
No.
We can rate it out of songs. We can rate it out of children.
Ice cream sundaes is fine.
That were healed. We could rate it out of...
Sundays is fine.
Okay, we'll rate it out of ice cream sundaes.
Ice cream sundaes.
I'm going to give it 4 ice cream sundaes out of 5. It was very nostalgic for me. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Very often I'll watch a movie that I enjoyed a lot as a little kid and I'm like, oh, this isn't as great. And this one was just still really good. I just like the general feel of it, the 90s children's feel.
Yeah.
It was good. It was a feel-good movie.
Yeah. I think I'm going to give it 3.75. I really don't like people doing bad things and then not getting consequences for it. You know what I mean? Especially when it's murder. They literally murdered somebody.
But then he wasn't dead.
They don't know that.
Exciting.
And they went on living their lives like no big deal. I really didn't like that.
Hopefully they were better people for it. It was very Jesus-esque, I thought.
Well, yes. It was very Christ. Like, it's Christ allegory.
Mm-hmm. Which it is I think, a faith-based movie
I
production.
think that company is indeed.
So that makes a lot of sense.
But it was not an overtly faith-based thing. Because Jesus didn't have a lady friend.
Nope.
Depending on who you ask, I guess. But it's not canon.
If you ask any historians, probably not.
It's not canon.
No. That's fan fiction.
Canon is just the original work.
I know. The lady friend is fan fiction.
Oh, I get it. I thought you were saying like
Dan Brown.
Oh yeah.
It's fiction.
Tom Hanks had a horrible wig in that film.
Did he?
Yes, it was a weird mullet. Regardless.
I didn't realize that.
I
fell asleep during
I do
that.
think this is a faith-based company because when I saw the name of the production company, I remember something. I feel like they don't do God's Not Dead. I think somebody else did that.
I didn't actually recognize it. I think it actually had family in the title. Or
Yeah,
something.
it's called Family
Films Foundation.
Yeah, it's like
Something
I think it
like
was 3
that.
F's, but it was like Family Friendly Film. I don't think it was friendly, but Family something films, and I recognized it because I think they did some other wholesome 90s type films. But yeah, it was good. I liked the Beauty and the Beast aspect. I liked the songs. The only part I did not like was the people killing him. I just thought it was upsetting to just watch somebody get beat to death like that.
Very sad. I cried.
It was mob mentality, and like they didn't think like if he killed this girl, why would he be bringing her into town? Mm-hmm. They
didn't think anything through. Like nothing made sense of what they were doing.
They really made the country bumpkin stereotype seem really bad on themselves, like the uneducated country people. It's like you're just making it worse.
And we didn't mention this, but there was the weird farmer who really liked his pigs.
I don't want to talk about
And
that.
do you remember his little...
I didn't see that. That guy...
He had painted, like...
Stop.
mouse on his hands, and he was talking with his hands.
Do they look like a pig?
No, they were just...
That guy
just like this.
had an unhealthy relationship with those pigs, and I didn't like it. I think those pigs need a welfare check.
And I remember he was telling his wife about how somebody had eaten blue down the street for Christmas.
The pig, yeah.
And then he was like, "What's for breakfast?" And his wife was like, "Bacon."
When it's like, duh, sir.
You're a pig farmer.
You're
poor, and that's what
he
you
was
have to
saying
eat.
like pigs are your
They have
family,
feelings.
which they very
He said
well.
pigs are just like people.
Yes,
except
which
they
is
can't
perfectly
talk.
fine. He was like, don't call them names. But I don't think pigs understand English. I think they understand tone, like a dog or cat or whatever. Like a human.
Yeah.
I don't speak, Russian, but if a Russian person was screaming at me with their face clenched, I understand that.
Right.
Means I'm not going to go over there.
Yeah.
But it seemed very unhealthy. I just hope he wasn't abusing those pigs in a inappropriate manner. Animals can't.
I don't think he was because
animals
they have
can't
feelings.
consent.
He wasn't. He was protecting them.
Let me tell you what. In another, Kayla randomly finds things on the internet.
Oh no.
Some people believe that they are in consensual relationships.
I know.
With all
I don't
types
want
of
to
things.
talk about it.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't think that was going on. I choose to not believe
It was
that.
very weird. Is all I will say. That's all I wanted to say initially, but obviously I can help myself. It was weird.
And Porter turned into a good storyteller.
Yeah, he turned into an orator. He's like a little Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
When Oprah was a little girl, either she had a stutter or she didn't talk for a long time because she had a very abusive childhood. And then at one point, she started just memorizing speeches. And she, as a little girl, they were like, wow, she is going to be a speaker. Like, she's going to be an orator. And she did. That's what the Porter reminded me of. It was like, just like little Oprah. She's a little girl.
I guess that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, my sister did another mini episode for The Wiz, if you haven't listened to that yet. That's up. And also, I did not fix the Thumbelina episode yet. Maybe I will one day. Maybe I won't. It's just a surprise. Life is like that.
You can understand us. It just...
That's what it sounds
It was actually... I listened to it all the way through. It was actually a pretty entertaining episode, aside from the sound issues.
It was very distressing.
I liked that you just kept playing the music. I was finally like, stop playing that.
Oh, I thought I cut that out.
No, you left it in there.
Oops. I must have thought it was entertaining at the time.
And then at the end, you were like, why is this so long? And I was like, because you played music the
I think that's
time.
why I left it in. I think that's why I left it. I was like, you got to know what we went through to get here. As always, talk to us on the internet at TAMFT Podcast. We don't know if we're going to watch Mamma Mia yet. I did post something on Facebook about it, and one of our Facebook followers.
I saw that. We had a comment. That was really cool. That was exciting. What?
She did say, because I haven't seen the first Mamma Mia. Tiffany's seen it. She didn't enjoy it. But the comment on our Facebook, you didn't enjoy it, right?
For the most part. I would watch it again, but I wouldn't. Yeah, it's not going to get a high rating from me.
Oh. But the Facebook commenter, she did say that she liked the first one. The second one, she felt like did not follow the actual stage show, and they just threw some stuff in there, so she did not recommend it.
Yes, I remember that. I actually didn't know that they had a second actual stage show.
They didn't. She was saying that the second one made up a bunch of stuff.
Oh, okay. That's what I assumed.
So it didn't follow the stage show.
Right. That's what I assumed, because there wasn't a second stage show. Okay.
Yes. I've never seen Mamma Mia in any capacity.
I saw it live at the Fox. It was nice there.
Good? Is it about a lady who has 3 baby daddies?
Yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
What do you know?
So maybe this is our mini-episode for Mamma Mia. Fun times.
We gotta go. But join us in 2 weeks. Yes, 2 weeks. We're gonna talk about me in St. Louis. Is that how that goes?
Mm-hmm. Me at the fair.
Yeah. Hell yeah, guys. You like that?
And the trolley song.
Ring, ring, ring on the trolley. Ding, ding, ding with the bell. That one.
Thump, thump, thump.
With my heartstrings. And the moment I saw him, I fell. Even though he wasn't on the trolley at that time. We're doing a lot of mini episodes.
Bye.
Goodbye. I'm done.
Bye, everybody.
Farewell.
Bye.
Goodbye.
On Dada C.
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.